Salutations, everyone. I'm going to give you my review on Batman vs. Superman. I'm going to start off spoiler-free, and then I'll give you guys a warning, and then we'll get into the spoilers. Overall, I enjoyed the film. I know that the reviews are not great. They didn't start off as great, and we knew going into it that this movie was going to have some problems. There was some problems that I and many other people had about how they're going about this, how much was riding on this film, how this film needed to do well because they set up like 20 movies already after it. You know, they're counting their chickens before they hatch. So there's a lot riding on this film, and they're introducing a bunch of characters all at once, so we knew that there was going to be problems. Some people didn't like some of the casting. Some people didn't like Ben Affleck, who I thought, oh, he's going to do a fine job. And he did. He did do a fine job. I think that's the general consensus with even people who disliked the film. A lot of people had problems with Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. And I thought it was an interesting idea, but everyone's like, oh my gosh, I should have cast Bryan Cranston. It's like, you fuckers want Bryan Cranston to have every role in the world just because he was in a TV show for a couple of years. So you can shut up. The Lex Luthor wasn't fantastic. We saw bits and pieces of things in the trailers that we knew was like, I don't know if I like that, where that's going, or the spoilers that were in the trailer. There were two scenes in particular that were very spoilery in the trailers. One, if you've seen the trailers, you know which one I'm talking about. Another, you won't know until a little bit into the film. You'll be like, oh, that trailer, that thing, okay, that sucks, that I already know that that's going to happen. So that was a bit of a bummer. But I liked the film. It was pretty decent, even though I had my problems with some of the creative decisions, some of the lines, some of the plot, things that didn't really make sense. It was still objectively decent for a comic movie and for a movie overall. A lot of people go after a bloated runtime because it's 2.5 hours, which is the standard for most movies, especially movies that people like to talk about and make reviews about. Movies aren't ever too long unless they're just the worst movie ever, like Into the Woods. But everyone loves to shit on every movie ever made that it's too long. You know, it's too long, it's too long, it's too long. That's not a criticism that I think you can make. A movie will tell a story in the time that it allots to tell that story. That's not up to you. That's up to the filmmakers. So saying that a movie is too long, go fuck yourself. This movie, what they did good about Batman vs. Superman, they had pretty good action, pretty good thought processes through what many of the characters were going through. There were certain things that we thought were going to end up going one direction based off of what we know about the film, and they kind of deviated that some ways, and sometimes that was good, sometimes that was bad. It was pretty well shot. The acting was fairly decent. Some of the lines weren't great, and some of the characters weren't as portrayed in the way that we might have hoped. But overall, a lot of people might be thinking that, there was, not enough action, explosions, and it wasn't laughy, good times, campy, fun times, because for some reason, everyone in the world wants every single comic book movie ever made to be Guardians of the Galaxy. They want it to be fun and campy and laughing and music and then a bunch of action and explosions. That's not what 95% of comics are, so to adapt it in that way would make no sense. Yes, this movie was dark, whatever the fuck that means nowadays, because everyone calls everything dark. But it was handled appropriately, in a more metaphysical sense. They went after some subjects that other movies might not have touched on as much. Some people are not going to like that. They just want to see punchy explosions. But those are people that you can't ever please except if you jingle keys in front of their face and then they clap. This wasn't that type of movie. It wasn't a turn your brain off kind of film. Now, there were some things that you would have to accept with a grain of salt or with I don't know if I can believe that. But overall, the tone was set very well. It was a very fast-paced movie, which not all 2.5 hour long movies are. And the action was fairly good. Some of the story elements were tackled in a very nice way. Some of the thematic ideas were handled relatively well. And then there were just some, typical movie sins, or like, why doesn't the character do that? Or why does the character, do this cliche kind of thing? Almost every movie is going to have those types of problems. And this one was no exception. But I thought the movie was pretty decent all around. There were definitely some things I had my problems with, but I thought it was a rather decent movie. It's so popular nowadays, especially, on a more popular thing, to shit on it instantly. Especially on the internet and especially on YouTube. You love people's, they get angry in their reviews, and they're angry and they're mad fanboys, or they're mad movie critics, and they just love to shit on things because negativity always gets more views. Negativity always gets more hits. Negativity always gets more attention, and negativity always gets way more praise than positivity does, or objectivity. Or objectivity, if you want to say that word correctly. But, I'm not that kind of person. I rather enjoyed this film. It's not so bad that we need to stop all the other movies from being made. And it's not like the worst comic book movie ever. It's not the worst Batman movie ever. Did you see the first 4 Batman movies? Batman, Batman Returns, Batman and Robin, Batman Forever. Those were garbage films that were terrible in every way, shape, or form. And if you don't believe me, try watching them again with a straight face. You can't. A lot of people love to praise certain things in the first 2 films, but man, were those movies pieces of shit back then, and they still are now. This was, I think, better than those 4 movies. I think it was better than Man of Steel, and I didn't think Man of Steel was amazing by any means, but I thought the film did a fairly decent job at some things. I think it had too much setup for other things down the road, which we knew it was going to have, but to the extent that it went was a little bit too pandering to the audience, or kind of dumbing down some of the things to a more digestible state. So now I'm going to get into the spoilers, so spoiler alert. So there was things that we knew about this movie going in that we may or may not have liked. The trailers spoiling Doomsday, that was sucky. And the fact that Doomsday looked more like a crappy Ninja Turtle than the way that Doomsday should look. I mean, he did get the ragged, spiky rocks a little bit later, but there needed to be more. They should have made Doomsday look better. And they should have kept that a secret, as well as Wonder Woman's entrance as Wonder Woman. When she blocked the thing and then the shockwave, the crowd cheered because Wonder Woman. I mean, getting to see the Trinity on screen for the first time in history was kind of cool. Regardless of what you thought about the movie, it's like the DC Trinity is right there in one shot, and that's cool as a fan. As far as Gal Gadot casting, I wasn't super huge on because she wasn't really an actor. She was in a Fast and the Furious movie, and that was like it. But I'll hold off that judgment for her own movie, which they showed the whole photograph thing from 1918 in World War I. They had Chris Pine and Steve Trevor right next to her and the rest of her team. So, but she was okay, I thought, in the role that they put Wonder Woman in, both as the Princess Diana, as well as, when she's in the suit fighting, completely holding her own. We got to see the lasso of truth. I was wondering, are we going to see the lasso? Does she have it? Did she lose it back then? Or are they going to wait to reveal it to the next movie? But boom, we saw lasso of truth. That was pretty cool. We saw her slice off an arm that he regrew. Like Doomsday, you can't slice off his arm, but I mean, at least they regrew it and had him stab Superman or whatever. We knew that this was Frank Miller inspired, The Dark Knight Returns kind of thing, based off of, the shot of him on the tower, and the suit, and everything. So you shouldn't have been super surprised that Batman was super brutal, and he killed people. He straight up killed people. Which I'm sure some people are going to have a problem with, but it's like, if you're a comic book fan and you've read, the Frank Miller Batman, yeah, he kills people. And he doesn't, just straight up gank people. He kind of, not really manslaughters is the right term, but he kind of doesn't go out of his way to save people that would otherwise die. He shoots up a truck that has a minigun and then the dudes on it die. They die by consequence. He isn't trying to kill, but he doesn't let it get in his way. The guy has a grenade, he stops him, throws another dude at him, and then they both get killed by the grenade. What else are you going to do in that situation? Throw your batarang and it hits the grenade and it stops it from exploding? That'd be kind of cheap. But I didn't have I was surprised that they went that route. I knew it was definitely a possibility, but I was still surprised. I was like, oh, he straight up killed the guy. Okay, so this Batman kills. Alright, that's fine. I mean, a lot of people thought there was going to be the whole thing because Superman snapped Zod's neck, therefore Batman hates him because he killed and Batman doesn't kill. But this Batman kind of kills. So that conflict didn't really happen. And the whole Batman versus Superman going head to head didn't pan out in the ways most of us expected, in a lot of ways some of us hoped. It was, he's angry at Superman because, he brought the war to us, buildings falling down, and he's an alien, and if there's a 1% chance that he's our enemy, we have to take it as an absolute certainty, which is a way that Batman would interpret that. There's many different Batmans that many people might be used to, whether it be film or animation or comics, and this was an interpretation of Batman that we have seen. Very cynical, untrustworthy of many things, and he has contingency plans against, all of the Justice League, as we have seen in storylines like Doom. And we thought that was going to be his reason, and Superman was like, you think you're above the law, I need to stop you, and they start butting heads. But then Lex Luthor makes them fight, regardless if they had that conflict or not. So that was kind of lame. The whole Martha thing, being both of their mom's name, I think was kind of cool to play off of. I didn't think that's how the fight was going to end. Most people, I thought we were going to be like, oh, Batman and Superman are fighting, and then boom, Doomsday comes out, and they have to team up together. That's usually what happens, and when good people are fighting each other, there's a third party that they have to then team up and fight against. But Batman straight up won that victory. He did. He had the kryptonite gas, and he had him with the spear, and he was going to do it, and then Lois is there to save him, because the whole Martha thing, why'd you say that name? I didn't really have a big problem with that fight, or how it ended. Batman did win, which I assume is what the crowd would want, because Batman's more popular, for many reasons. But I think Batfleck did a good job as Bruce Wayne, as Batman. I thought Gal Gadot Superman wasn't so developed that we could form a big opinion on her. Maybe they used her too much. Maybe they didn't. I mean, was that whole scene of her on the plane really necessary? It would have been cooler if she just showed up out of nowhere and then blocked that Doomsday shot. But I liked it overall for each individual performance and how the characters acted. There was definitely things I had problems with. Why is Perry White telling people what the headlines of their articles should be? Editors-in-chief don't do that. The whole setting Batman up in that thing in the desert kind of didn't make sense. How did they make that as Superman's faults? He escalated the situation worse? Or did they try to make it feel like he killed those people? Why did they need special ammunition to shoot people? That seemed very unnecessary and just basically led Lois to finding out, the truth behind it all. Why does this senator care about what the fuck happened halfway across the globe to help Lois with that whole bullet trace thing? As far as Lex finding out that Superman was Kal-El, I didn't have a problem with. Superman is going to know who Batman is. He's got X-ray vision. That's done. Batman is probably going to know who Superman is, greatest detective in the world. What are you going to do? Now, they didn't go down that route. Well, they could have if they wanted to, but they felt it wasn't necessary, so they didn't even touch on it. And as far as Lex finding out Superman's identity was okay. In most cases, Lex Luthor never finds out Superman's identity. But in this case, he does, which is okay, especially since they made it seem like he found out because of Lois Lane. He saves Lois during the whole fight, and then here she is in the desert, kind of as bait to see if his, theory is true about who it is or not. And then he shows up, and then it's like, who is Lois Lane close with? this coworker at the Daily Planet that she lives with, and, you know, let's do some comparisons. Okay, that's Superman. That was okay, I think. Unnecessary. They didn't need to go down that route. I wasn't a huge fan of their portrayal of Lex Luthor. Not so much that it was Jesse Eisenberg. They did went a different route. Lex wasn't in control of himself as much as usual. Usually he's calm and composed, but gets angry. But here he was just kind of, you know, a little loose. Not like psychotic or Jokerish or anything like that. But he was too eccentric. For my personal taste. I think for most people, they just didn't like it because it was Jesse Eisenberg and not Bryan Cranston for whatever reason. So that I wasn't a big fan of, or the fact that they're trying to frame Superman for something in the desert and say that it was his responsibility because he intervened or he didn't intervene in the right way or what have you. The whole bomb thing happening on Capitol Hill, I thought that was well done. When Lex gave him that wheelchair, I thought, is something in that wheelchair? Like, I thought about it, but the explosion still caught me by surprise with the whole, you know, jar of tea kind of thing, and she was scared. I figured she was going to change her position on something or do something, but then the bomb went off. And that was kind of cool. I think that was kind of cool for the story, because Superman second-guessed himself. It's like, I wasn't looking. That's why I didn't see it, because I wasn't looking. And he blames himself for this. And he sort of has this disconnect from humanity. But, you know, of course, Lois is there, one of the most important characters in the DC universe because of her relationship with Superman. But one of the bigger things that I think a lot of people aren't going to like, or I don't know, I haven't read reviews, and I personally wasn't a big fan of, was the whole Batman, like, dreaming the future kind of thing. It was really, really weird. Like, were these visions or was he dreaming? There was the one vision with the boom, Darkseid's here, obviously. There's the big old Omega symbol. Shit went down. There are parademons flying away everywhere. It looks like he's trying to get kryptonite to stop Superman, which we think that this is what he thinks the future might be, or it's a vision or something, because then he gets stopped and trapped. Because Superman says that, you know, she was my world, and they went the injustice route where, you know, Joker kills Lois Lane and then Superman goes berserk and becomes a super fascist dictator to keep everybody in order. But like that vision doesn't make sense, because wait, so Batman is dreaming of a version of Superman who he doesn't know much about personally yet at all, that he would say she was my world, and he holds Batman responsible for her death. Why would Batman think in his mind that Superman has a significant other that then dies, that then pushes Superman to do what he does, and for some reason Darkseid and the parademons are involved? Is this a vision of a possible future? Is it just a dream? Because he's thinking of things that he shouldn't think based off of what he knows. He doesn't know Lois Lane. He doesn't know that Superman has a human love interest. So that was weird. And the other vision with the Flash traveling through time is like, okay, that was real, right? Because it's the Flash. He travels through time. And I now understand that if you don't read comic books, you might not have known that that was the Flash. But boom, there's the Flash. But of course, he plays the pronoun game. You were right about him all along. She is the key. You have to protect her or whatever. I don't know. That's one of the scenes that I wish I could replay and really, you know, pay attention to exactly what he says and, you know, memorize it so we can, you know, break it down kind of deal. But he says something to that effect. And, you know, find us, you know, find Flash and Aquaman and, you know, Cyborg and all that stuff, which I thought was unnecessary with the whole computer files things. Like, when we saw it, I was like, okay, cool. Can we leave it at that by seeing their logos? But no, then they have to individually click on them all and waste our time with shit that we already know, and that the other people who don't know who they are they gonna care because they don't know about Victor or Barry or Jason Momoa's Aquaman? I felt that was an unnecessary thing. Like, they didn't need to have that build up. We already saw their logos were there, in this metahuman file. So that one I definitely had some problems with. That's a little too much setup, guys. That's a little too much. I realize that you feel like you have to do a lot, but I think you did enough. A little bit more subtlety, I think, would have gone a long way in that aspect. But the whole Batman Visions thing, I wasn't a big fan of. And the whole Kevin Costner thing with Superman, that was not a scene that we needed to see. I don't think that added to anything, whether Superman was having some sort of internal crises or not. I felt that was an ancillary scene that could have been cut. And maybe, we'll see when the deleted scene comes out in this rated R version on the Blu-ray or whatever, what they should have kept and what they should have cut, based off of that. I thought we were going to go more into Batman's backstory, because in the trailer we see the Robin suit with, the Joker riding on it. So it's like, oh shoot, is that going to be like a big part of the storyline? But no, he just glances at it. So, I would love to see a Red Hood, Batman movie or a Killing Joke Batman movie. They can go either direction based off of where they already are in Batman's life. Whether it be a retired Batgirl or what have you, they can definitely go to Red Hood, like, right off the bat if they wanted. But we know that Justice League starts filming next month, and Batman vs Superman is probably going to do pretty well in the box office. I don't think it's going to hit $1 billion, which is going to be a disappointment for them. I know a lot of fans are disappointed for probably a myriad of reasons, but it's a very, very popular thing to hate on something, and this thing had a lot riding on it. There was a lot of problems that the movie had, but overall, I know it might seem like I didn't like the movie as much as I say I did, because I kind of focus on things that I didn't like, but I liked the action. I liked the fight scenes. I liked the bat suit. The fact that we saw a Batwing, I was assuming we were going to see that, but it was kind of like, where's the Batwing? He should be using the Batwing in this case, but then he does later on. I like the fight scenes with Batman, going to save Martha, but that was one of the things that I think the trailer ruined. Like, I knew in my mind, well, there's that one fight scene with Batman in the trailer that is like, oh, that's him saving Martha. God damn it. I wish I didn't know that. So that sucked. Doomsday could have been better. I thought the fight between Superman and Doomsday and Batman and Wonder Woman was fine. Doomsday did show up, therefore Superman died. That makes sense. But we know, both as a movie viewer and a comic reader, that he was going to come back to life. He wasn't going to stay dead. But I am glad at the end of the movie that they made sure it's like, Superman isn't dead, right? I mean, you can hear his heartbeat, and the dirt floats from the casket from what it's like. I'm glad they did that. So it's like, okay, he is alive. To the more layman people who might think, oh my god, they killed. Oh no, he didn't. Because hello, they're shooting Justice League in a few weeks, so obviously they're not going to have that be a surprise. Oh my god, Henry Cavill's on the set of Justice League. What's he doing there? I thought he died. It's the Justice League. You need Superman. But I wonder if that death is going to have any impact on the story of Justice League. Is he going to be resurrected at the beginning of that movie, or in the middle, or in the end, or way beforehand? Don't know. All we have before that is the Wonder Woman movie, which is going to be, I think, mostly flashbacks. We don't know if there's going to be any present day stuff in the Wonder Woman film. Still no word on, of course, a solo Batman movie about Ben Affleck possibly directing. There was a lot of rumors that he rewrote the script, Batman vs Superman, and his costume changes. No. He didn't have any say in that, in Batman vs Superman at all. He is just an actor. So, some people aren't big Zack Snyder fans. He definitely has his hits and misses. I didn't think Man of Steel was a perfect movie. Maybe it would be best if they didn't come to him again for Justice League, and there has been rumors that he wasn't, but I don't think those rumors are true. But, people liked 300. People didn't like Watchmen. I liked Watchmen, one of the greatest graphic novel of all time, and I think he did a good job adapting it. But as far as what he took from the comics, was kind of cool in some senses, and understandable what he did and didn't take out from it, as well as how the fight went down differently. Batman didn't fake a heart attack or anything like that, and he ended up winning, and Superman was, in the rubble in the end instead of him, and then Superman dies, killing Doomsday. So that was... Overall, I did enjoy it. I liked how much they expanded upon the inner thoughts of these characters, the inner turmoil, the disconnect of Superman in his responsibilities and his connection to humanity, as well as Batman in his older age dealing with what he thinks is right and what is best for the people now that we have a god among us. And they almost went that injustice route, but not quite. So it'll be interesting to see what the fuck Flash was talking about, if that I'm guessing that was something that really happened, but why did they play that off as a vision? I guess to kind of discount it in his own mind, that, oh, it was just a dream, but still give him further doubts about Superman. So I think they handled that conflict between Batman and Superman fairly well on a couple of different levels. And the fight was fairly good. I think Superman could have been a little bit more apprehensive at the beginning of that fight, because he said, Bruce, I need your help. But then he didn't say it again. It's like, I mean, Superman should have gone, like, look, I need your help. And then he fights him and all that stuff and shoots him and he stops those turrets and everything. But he's like, I need your help. He has my mom. Lex Luthor set this all up. I think Batman could believe that because he's been, investigating this whole White Persian thing for such a long time. But we needed to see them fight. I think that was, the crux of the film. And some people might be disappointed about the build-up to that fight, or the fact that it wasn't enough fighting. I think most people are going to enjoy the action and the fighting in this movie, but some people are just going to nitpick for nitpicking's sake. Overall, I did like the film. There were definitely problems that I knew we were going to have. I wasn't going in with super high expectations. I knew I was probably going to like it a little bit, but I was definitely going to be disappointed in some aspects based off of what we already knew. What the storyline was going to be, how much setup it needed to have for, the other movies, as well as what we saw in the trailers. Is like, I know I'm going to have a problem with that. Not Batman holding a gun. I told you guys from day one when that trailer came out, oh my god, Batman holds a gun, Batman doesn't use a gun. And I told you, it's obviously not a fucking gun, you idiots. So they would not give Batman a gun. I mean, they did in that alternate reality where obviously shit went down and Batman just didn't care and started, doing what he needed to do to get that kryptonite to stop Superman. That makes sense. But of course that wasn't a gun. That was his, kryptonite grenade launcher thingy. So yeah, I'm a little bit more level-headed than your typical moviegoer or comic book fan. And I know going in more so what to expect and what to look for and what to appreciate and what to, not like. And I think this movie did more things good than it did bad. Hopefully, this was not the biggest step forward for the DC Cinematic Universe, but a good enough step forward to the fact that they can expound upon it better with the Wonder Woman movie and with the Justice League movie and with Flash and Aquaman and Cyborg. If this movie doesn't do particularly well, we don't know what the future is going to hold. They're obviously going to still shoot Justice League because that happens next week, and Wonder Woman already wrapped. So a lot is riding on those movies. Super excited for Suicide Squad. I'm much more anticipated for Suicide Squad than I was for Batman vs Superman, based off of what we knew, as well as the trailers. But yeah, I did like the film. Overall, what do I give it? A 6, a 7. I don't know. I thought it was, like I said, better than Man of Steel, even though Man of Steel wasn't great. I thought it was okay, but I think this was better than okay, but not terrible. Not Christopher Nolan Batman great. But as far as DC movie goes, it's easily one of the best ones because, damn, that's a bad track record. But they avoided some mistakes that they could have made. I mean, obviously that's not gonna, give them credence over the mistakes that they did make, but I felt that they did a good enough job. This movie was good enough, and hopefully that's all that this cinematic universe needed, and they can do better in the future. But overall, good film. Enjoyable, cool action, some plot holes, some things I didn't, really like, but overall, it was a fun and enjoyable experience. I'll see you guys later.